Hey guys, it's me, Cheetah Sweater. I've decided that over the course of multiple videos, I'm going to analyze the discography of my favorite band,
SLYME!
Now this may sound easy, and in some ways it is. I'm exceedingly familiar with all of their work, so I don't necessarily have to listen to it a whole bunch of times to get the gist of its sound, lyrics, and other things like that. Also, this isn't entirely an analysis of the lyrical content of their music. I will touch on that, but the main thing I'm analyzing is the singles and albums place in SLYME's career and discography. However, they still do have a lot of music. Their work spans over a time period of 20 years, in which 12 original albums and 40 singles were released, which means they definitely have quite a substantial amount of music to comb through. I'm going to be talking in detail about not all, but most of it, starting with their 2000 single, UNDERLINE No. 5. I chose to start at this single because I see it as the beginning of modern day SLYME, but I'll get into that later on. Anyways, I'm going to use this intro to briefly touch on the significance of their pre-2000s works without really going into as much detail. SLYME was their first ever studio album, distributed solely on CD starting October 21st, 1995. This was technically only an EP, with 5 tracks and about 24 minutes in runtime. This album was a bit rough around the edges, and remains my least favorite SLYME project, but it's still significant as it was their first project they put out there. Note that the only members at this time still in modern day SLYME were the founding members, Ryoji and Omari, and Pes, who was added soon after. The 2 DJs present, Shiga and Shoji, were only in the group for this record, and didn't produce any of the music on it. It was mainly produced by Pes, with outside contributors Mummy D of Rhymester and Yagi of Easton joining to produce a single track each. Their second album, Talkin' Cheap, was about 30 minutes longer and had a lot more music to show for it, but was still not a very solid effort. Current member DJ Fumiya joined and produced quite a few songs for this release, and it did have its gems, but almost all of its high points were singles or B-sides, and none of the songs that were introduced with the album really lived up to any of the singles, making it kind of a disappointing album. However, there are 2 songs I'd like to single out for their importance. Fade Away is very significant as it was their first song to have a music video. It's not exactly the greatest PV out there, but it still gives us a rare glimpse at 90s SLYME, which frankly was seldom captured on video. Searchin is also an important track on the album, as it was the first song they made with modern day member Sue, who joined in the middle of production for the album. It's quite an unorthodox appearance from him, partly because the song was more of a mellow singing track than a rapping track, so naturally we hear Sue singing in this one, and it's almost impressive how good his mid-range voice sounds in this song, considering how he rarely uses that range going forward and how deep his voice ends up being later on. So, SLYME has come out, Talkin' Cheap has come out, what's next for SLYME? Well, the next release is one of the main subjects of this video, UNDERLINE No. 5. Released in May 2000, UNDERLINE No. 5, their last single under their indie label File Records, marks a very noticeable style change from the very beginning, instantly hitting you with a faster tempo than any SLYME song released up to that point, and having a way more dynamic mood than what you would expect from them if you were following them at this time. This is also the first song to feature Sue rapping, and it's quite the first impression. The B-side, Space Breakers, is slower, but still just as exciting, and still carries over the energy that Underline No. 5 built up with its high pace, just at a bit of a slower speed this time around. This single was the mark of a completely different aura surrounding SLYME's music, a transition from straight laid-back boom bap with some singing to upbeat and exciting breakbeat style hip-hop. It's quite the compelling comeback, and it was also released around the same time SLYME was finally amassing themselves a pretty decent audience. With the help of their new crew TMC, who they joined on the omnibus track TMC Graffiti months after releasing the single, and more specifically their fellow rap unit Dragon Ash, they were performing Underline No. 5 and other songs for all sorts of fairly well-sized audiences around Japan, who definitely fed into SLYME's infectious energy and enthusiasm, which was even more intense because of how young they were at the time. The excitement in the room during these concerts is palpable, and you can tell just by watching that SLYME weren't just performing to audiences, they were performing to new fans. With the release of songs like Underline No. 5 and Space Breakers, they were putting their rhyme skills on full display. They showcased their versatility by showing us, hey, we made a bunch of mellow boom bap, and that's cool, but look what else we can do. And people were finally starting to catch on to it. So where did they go from there? Well, on November 23, 2000, under Warner Indie Network, SLYME released their final indie single, Matamade. The title track is a pretty jovial song, almost sounding more Christmassy than anything else. This song ended up becoming one of the most iconic songs in SLYME's discography, being used to end almost all of their tour concerts since the song's release, and for good reason. It's a very celebratory sounding song, and being one of their first singles, it's also very sentimental, and seems to just radiate the misty-eyed feeling that the end of a concert gives you. The first B-side, Kanzen Shiai, is a pretty laid-back classic hip-hop song, but it's not as one-dimensional as their 90s work was, and it's a pretty relaxing song, even though it's fairly energetic even in being more calmed. The other B-side, And, is one of my favorite SLYME songs of all time, despite my only full copy of it being in 64 kilobytes per second. It's a melodious, catchy, and harmony-filled song, with all the members coming through with great verses and an incredibly infectious hook to top it all. Overall, the single was a great end to the turn of the century for SLYME. It showed that they had a lot more potential than they initially let on in the 90s, and that can be faithfully attributed to the addition of production mastermind DJ Fumiya and a fourth MC, Sue, to balance things out. At this point it seemed like things were only going up from here, and that definitely proved time and time again to be true in the next 15 years of their career. Hey guys, it's me again doing an unwritten outro. Do you want to learn more about SLYME, or just want to hear me talk about them? Well, I've got good news for you. As I said before, this is going to be a series, or it's planned to be a series. So, you should maybe subscribe to my channel or not, or just check back if you want. But you know, I'm gonna be doing more of these about SLYME's discography, and they have a long discography, so there's gonna be a lot of videos. Maybe, I don't know how I'm gonna segment it exactly, but I'm betting there's probably gonna be a lot of videos. So, you know, if you liked my writing and maybe my voice, then huzzah, you'll get to hear more of that. If not, then I'm sorry. Just, I guess, read the Wikipedia article. That'll probably give you better information anyway.